Please join me in giving a warm round of applause to Loretta J. Ross.
Thank you. Thank you. This thing is heavy. Put it on the table. How y'all doing? Y'all can tell I'm from the South because we got to know if you're worth talking to first. That's why we always start off with those slow greetings and stuff. I've decided tonight that I'm going to be as political as I want to be. And that's because there's a whole lot of lawyers in this room, so y'all know that I am proud to work at Smith College as a faculty member, and I'm even more proud that the course I teach is called White Supremacy in the Age of Trump. Yeah, I'm going to need your help already. I'm already on the professor watch list and refused to debate Charlie Kirk a long time ago. What I see my mission as now, after more than 50 years doing social justice activism, is to teach young people how to fight fascism. I know for many, many years, people have been saying that we were catastrophizing by using the F word. No, they're just a bit cuckoo. Oh, they're a bit extreme. Oh, those are just right-wing populists or authoritarians. We would die, it seemed like, for fear of calling a spade a spade. But now it's undeniable. And so when I teach these young people, I teach them that the fascists, all that they have going for them are lies and violence. Actually, they got a very weak hand, in my opinion, because you can't lie forever, and violence alienates your own base. So for us who are fighting for human rights and justice, we actually hold the winning hand, because on our side, we have the truth. We have all the evidence that they're trying to bury. Should I mention Epstein? We have the history. They don't want us to teach because they want to repeat it. But most of all on our side, we've got time. And I am convinced that these pimples on the ass of time cannot defeat truth, evidence, history, and time itself. And so, don't be disheartened, because even if we do everything wrong, look what our hand is holding versus theirs. But I don't want us to do it all wrong. I was really surprised when y'all chose me for this. I still don't understand why. I don't know who I paid. I'm glad you did. But one of the reasons I'm honored to accept this award is because I had the privilege of working with Reverend C.T. Vivian. And some of you may know he was the aide to Dr. Martin Luther King. He actually led the first lunch counter sit-in in 1947 in Peoria, Illinois, a decade before Greensboro and all of those things. So in 1990, when I was hired by Reverend Vivian, I became the only black person and the only woman to manage an opposition research center at the National Anti-Klan Network, renamed the Center for Democratic Renewal. And CDR, by the way, was founded 2 years before the Southern Poverty Law Center. So we like to say they took the black model and Elvis did. But anyway, Y'all know what I'm saying. But the reason I'm saying that and bringing Reverend Vivian into the room, who only died a short while ago, is that he used to always say when we deprogrammed white supremacists and went to Klan rallies, seen black people going to Klan rallies, what a job. But anyway, he said, when you ask people to give up hate, then you need to be there for them when they do. And I have to honestly say, the first time Reverend Vivian said that to me, I was like, oh, shit. Because if the Klan hates me, I'm all right hating them back. I'm very transactional that way. But he was channeling Dr. King and teaching a generation what the fight was for, because it was about love, not hate. It was about modeling the world we want to build while we fight the one that we have. And that was such an important message to hear. And so when I saw Donald Trump come down that golden escalator, I was like, oh, hell, these folks ain't ready for this. 2016. Because we were like Cassandra, the sky is falling, and nobody believed us. President Obama had been elected. And one thing I know about how white supremacy works is that so many people are so willing and eager to call it prematurely dead that they disassemble the fight against it and then have to resurrect it cyclically. So when Trump came down that escalator and I decided that I was going to take what I learned in community and teach it in the classroom, I ran into a surprising obstacle. And that obstacle was a lot of people are passionate about justice, but they don't know how to handle their passion with compassion. So they take these radical politics and forget all the radical love practices that Dr. King talked about. They can quote him, but they don't believe him, which is somewhat of a paradox. And so once I observed that in the classroom, I started thinking about all that I had been through, the number of people I wanted to cancel but couldn't because I needed to work with them to get the change I wanted done. And so I started writing a book in 2016 called Calling In, and you heard the title, and to explain the patterns of the cancel culture that we're all experiencing. I created a taxonomy explaining what is this phenomenon that we're dealing with and how can we analyze that pattern so we can then deconstruct it and do something different. And so I think that might be the pathway how I got here. I don't know. The people I bribed haven't reported back yet, but I think that's the pathway. Because I think we all recognize the cancel culture and its power to hurt people. Because you're choosing to use anger, blaming, and shaming as a way of holding people accountable. Except that it doesn't really work. Because nobody likes being publicly shamed and humiliated. I don't care how right you are. You're choosing a method that's guaranteed to shut their listening down. So, and then the fact that you choose to do it publicly really means that it's actually not about correcting the other person and holding them accountable, because you're doing it publicly because you're signaling how woke you are. We call that virtue signaling. Because you could have talked to them privately. You could have slid into, what is the DMs? I'm a boomer. My twats don't tweet. I don't know what any of this stuff is, right? And the ultimate call out is canceling somebody. That's when you think somebody has done something so harmful that you want to get them real good. But to do that, you have to summon your inner Karen. I'm going to get you fired. Which may feel good in a moment, but think about it. If you consider yourself part of the human rights movement, and you are replicating the same prison industrial complex that we're trying to abolish by silencing, exiling, and disposing of people, don't you think that's a little contradictory? And by the way, why do you think it's going to work better for us than it does for the state? You ever heard of recidivism? Wrongful convictions? You know, those kinds of things. It's a master's tools kind of thing. So you're quoting Audrey, but you don't believe her. Okay, back to that one. Calling in the third C of the 5C continuum is not the opposite of calling out, because these are all accountability choices. But instead of using anger, blaming, and shaming, you're choosing to use your integrity, and the integrity that allows you to offer people grace, respect, and belief in their complexity like you want people to believe in yours. Because we're all comprised of good stuff, bad stuff. Sometimes the good stuff shows up, sometimes the bad stuff shows up. That's the human condition. So in calling in, you would say something to somebody like, you know, I used to use the word retarded, but I've since learned from people helping me that now we say neurodivergent. So do you mind if we have coffee and talk about what you just said? So you're not calling them out, you're not blaming and shaming them. You're appreciating their humanity by demonstrating your own. I think Thurgood Marshall said something about that. But don't ask me to quote him, because I had a good time in the 60s. Now, sometimes you don't want to spend your time and attention and invest in somebody else's growth. So that's where the fourth C comes in. Sometimes you just want to call on them to do better. If you know them, it really, really works. Because you say, you know, Jeff, I know you're a good guy, and we have so much fun together, and you would run into a burning building to save somebody if you could. So help me, Jeff, understand how you can say those words about somebody you've never met, right? Help me. Do I have the good friend Jeff or the bad friend Jeff? You're calling on them to reconcile their own inner contradictions, because every one of us believe we're better on the inside than often we display on the outside. So you're not calling them out, you're not calling them in. You're calling on them. And the fifth C, and by the way, y'all better give me a time check, because I can, is calling it off. That's your disengagement strategy. Why are you wasting your finite time on earth arguing with assholes? Unless you're in a courtroom, okay, I got that part. In court, you're supposed to argue with assholes, but not in everyday life. If they're lying to you, if they're manipulating you, cherry-picking their facts, whatever, disengage, right? So that's the 5C continuum. And once you understand the range of choices you have, you can choose the accountability strategy that most suits your integrity, intelligence, your need to do the right thing even when there's no personal benefit to you for it. That's really important. So let me start shutting up and round back to Dr. King. Because Reverend Vivian worked for Dr. King, he was always channeling him for us on the staff. And so one time, Reverend Vivian surprised me by telling me that something I didn't know, He said, Martin never meant to build a civil rights movement. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about now? Because down south, we were taught Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, civil rights leader, like that was his whole name. You couldn't leave none of that out. And he surprised me because I was fighting hate groups, trying to figure out how we are going to make a difference. And he said, no, Martin meant to build a human rights movement. I'm like, I know you're my elder and all of this, but you're the same one that told me to not hate them, so I need more evidence. He went and pulled down a copy of Dr. King's last Sunday sermon, March 31st, 1968. And in it, Dr. King spoke about a triple revolution, a revolution in weaponry and our ability to annihilate people all over the world, a revolution in communications, where we can talk instantaneously to people all over the world. I wonder what he would think about the internet now, right? But he said the most important revolution is the human rights revolution, that freedom explosion taking place around the world. And when Reverend Vivian showed me that speech 4 days before he was assassinated, I blurted out, everybody told me he had a dream. Nobody told me he had a plan. You know? And so let's really understand how fortunate we are to be alive at this moment. Because the first people facing fascism didn't have history books to tell them about it. The first people who had to stand up for human rights like Dred Scott did in 1857 didn't know Brown v. Board of Education was going to take 90 years to reverse it. You know, they didn't have that model, but we have that privilege. And so what I want to emphasize is one last thing that Reverend Vivian told me. Whenever I encounter injustice, I get incandescently angry. I just want to blow somebody up, hurt somebody, do all of those things that are totally inappropriate. Well, because I have a flash temper and no filter, so that's a terrible combination, which is why I didn't go to law school. Because I love to argue, but I can't keep it zipped. Don't tell me your secrets. Blurt them all out. But another thing Reverend Vivian said, when I was feeling very depressed and worn down by the way we had to intentionally look at injustice every day and not lose our sense of joy, our sense of resilience, our ability to feel fully human, he reminded me that stop thinking of myself as the entire chain of freedom. Because that chain of freedom stretches back towards all of our ancestors and forward towards all of our descendants. And the only thing we need to worry about is not breaking that chain at our link. That's all we got to worry about. You know? Don't let apathy, despair, feeling overwhelmed, feeling tired, whatever your reason, cynicism, be responsible for your link. And so I will shut up for now, but I am so proud to be here with y'all. So many times when we were working on behalf of victims of hate violence, we couldn't find the lawyers of courage that y'all are now, you know? We could find people to defend the free speech rights of the Klan, but couldn't find somebody to represent the victims so often. So it's an honor for me to meet the movement that I've been waiting for. Thank you all for listening to me.